Welcome everybody, this is Evelyn. I woke up this morning to a beautiful love story about phase conjugation, of all things. I had woken up and I watched Elena Danon's video, The Nature of Source, and the phase conjugation had come up before in conjunction with the twin flames because we are an example of this energy. So it's easy to be understood by someone who's actually living it. So please listen to this. It's a beautiful story about phase conjugation, propagation, coinciding, coincidation, or coincidence. So the first thing that caught my eye as my guides were calling me to break down these words, we have side, S-I-D-E, and side, C-I-D-E here, very significant, and phase, which besides phase, which is appearance and to shine, it's also fae, as in fairies, and C, as in S-E. So conjugate is the connection to yoke to, or bind, join, unity, and juxtaposition. It's that energy of side by side, but not merged. So joined, but not completely as one, side by side. It's also to temporarily fuse, exchanging or transferring DNA, a complex number, the leftover of the pie, like taking one angle out of the circle with the leftover pie. The remainder, subtracting an angle from a full circle, is what that was. Things resembling each other. Propagation was coming up as dissemination, to multiply, continue, spread the seed, originate and spread, extend or pass on. And then coincide, as you don't think of coincide as being the same word as coincidence, but it is. Coincide is into or to fall, to occupy exactly the same space, to concur, agree, correspond, or occur at the same time. So I had looked up all of these words, and then I looked up CIDE, which means 7, which I found very interesting. And so then I looked up all the definitions for the word side with an S, S-I-D-E. And as soon as I went to look up the definition of side, nothing was coming up. The internet shut off for no reason. And I'm like, what the heck was that? And I look at the clock, and it was my twin's birthday. So I'm like, okay, so there's definitely a message for us to understand here. So it took a few minutes for the internet to go back on. After I had gotten up, I talked to my daughter, and she said the power did go off, but there was no reason for it to go off. So the internet got knocked over at that time. And so when it got knocked off, I went into my internet settings to see if there's something else I could connect to, or my phone if I needed to. And the one site that came up, I don't have all the code of the Wi-Fi that came up, but there were 2 connections that came up. Neither one of them had locks on them. And the one ended in 77, and I think the other one was 37. So I found that very interesting as 77 came up. So I opened the 77 to see if it would work, but it still wasn't working. And then I saw that it went and attached to my phone right away. And it took a couple minutes, and then the internet did come back on again, so I could go back to my normal Wi-Fi setting. But meantime, that 77 had come up, and my twin's birthday, and I was being guided to pursue this train of understanding. So I knew 77 was significant. That was the only 2 numbers in the code. It was all letters except for the 77 at the end. And so after side, C-I-D-E, was defined as number 7, which also for me is the key and the gamma ray and the boomerang, I finally got into the word side with an S, which is the flat edge of 2 dimensions, the flat surface of 3 dimensions, or a face. It's also half of something, polarity, the team, the side, or the team that you're on, the political affiliation, right? Any side of two things or more. Not the main dish, lineage, and in math it's the root. Left versus right, indirect, oblique, and then incidental came up. So not only was incidental coming up as coincide, but now it's a definition of the word side with an S, not C. So side with an S also means to suit or pair or match, accompaniment. Vast, wide, long, drooping or hanging down, low, wide, broad, spacious, far distance, to clear, tidy, sort, page, bond, binding, bondage, relationship, tie, communication, signal, post office, ligament, arrow, bolt, shaft, and fairy hill or mound. And fairy had also already come up with the word phase, which fairy rarely comes up for me. A page, aspect, flank, and silk. A sail as well as to sail came up. And so then I went further in to look up phase conjugation again, in a literal sense, the definition of, so I could get some pictures, so I could understand it better. And so the example of phase conjugation is taking one shape basically, or a wave. You know, we're talking about sound and vibrations and video and that kind of thing. But taking one wave and reflecting it, so now it's not the same wave, it's the opposite, right? Because they're reflecting each other, but they're both going in the same direction. That's the phase conjugator. But if you use the reverse phase conjugator, they're going in opposite directions towards each other and end up being the same line, because the reflection has flipped and is now like someone spooning the other. They're together as one. Very interesting. So the phase conjugator is coming up as two reflecting in the same direction. So they reflect, but they're not going in opposite directions. They're going in the same direction. It's like two soulmates who reflect and are going in the same direction and are side by side, but they're not merged, okay? And then the reverse phase conjugator was coming up as the twin flame energy of in that spooning position, where both sides reflected, but then one flipped, and now it's like the two sides of the circle coming in towards the middle, towards each other. The two as one, and the push and pull of creating the twin flame energy of imploding or collapsing in upon oneself, which has come up lots this week in the messages, and the merging as opposed to the juxtaposition of just being side by side. The merge and the complements, the spooning. So side with the C is 7, and 7 when reflected upon itself becomes the triangle, the upside down triangle, the phase conjugate. But the 7 of the reverse phase conjugator is the 7 again. It's just more profound because now you have two 7s on top of each other or spooning together, which is then the triangle folded in upon itself. As we talked about, the masculine, collapsing in a concave shape, falling onto the arced feminine. And that's come up, like I said, many times in the other messages this week. And also this energy of the envelope, folding in upon itself. So we have the words side and side with S and C. So of course I had to look up the differences between inside and inside, one with an S and one with a C. So inside, is like inside your body as opposed to outside your body. And then inside with a C is to cut or separate, remove, resolve, or break up. And then the examples of a cleanser or medicine doing this, breaking something up or curing it. To carve, engrave, incise, monogram, affect, influence, and record. Or one definition of inside with a C is to fall or drop into or upon something. To meet by chance, bump into, attack, or assault. Or the positive side would be serendipitous. So inside with an S as opposed to outside, but inside with a C, or in 7 as opposed to out 7. So I looked up out 7 to see what came up, or 7 out, and that was right at 12 p.m. And in the game craps, to roll 7 after a point or after the shooter's initial roll, getting a 7 causes the pass line bets to lose and the round to end. So what also came up was the name of the movie 7, which has the 7 in the middle as the V, which is the V just angled in a different direction, right? Which then breaks up the 7 into SE, 7, and then EN, which SE is a sudden event, or to see with your eyes, and then EN, which for me is code Jesus Christ. So to see the 7 with JC, with creative direction here, and then I went back to the 7 out to see what else was coming up for 7 out besides the game of craps. So 7 out of what? So 7 out of 10, 7 out of 12. So was it something like that? Or was it this con game that came up from casino.org called 7 out? It's similar to the 3-card Monty or top of the barrel or shell games, where there's 2 die, a leather cup, and a game board, where there's one square with the numbers 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then the other square that has 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And number 7 is the win for the dealer only, which is the most common 2-die combination, number 7, which is why it's beneficial for the house. That's a 16.67% advantage for the house. And some, there's different cons they could use, as in holding a die. So while you hold a die in place, it guarantees that the number or higher will come up. So 7 or higher will come up in certain positions, right, when you let go of the die. Well, that was very interesting. And then other scams where they would have weighted die, or one die that had 2 6s on it and the other with 2 1s on it, which then would bring more 7s up, and it would take a while before anyone would actually catch on to that scam. So at 12:21, oh, there was something else about 7 out. All right, 7, the world was created in 7 days, and 7 out is the 7th day of rest, when it's a time out. Or after setting something up, right, after God set up the world, it's time to get out. The 7th day is rest, or being done, regarding rest, which is RE and ST, which is regarding the path, the star, the saint, and the 7 of the boomerang, out, or peace out. Boom, E-rang, I'm out. So, and of course, E represents the feminine in the E tower in my reads, and also Eve. It just happens to be my name is Evelyn, but again, I'm being an example as the divine feminine. So we go back to coincide, as in coincide, and then coincidental at 12:21. So coincide is the co of partners that fall upon each other, or partners inside is in 7, or I was getting partners in crime as well, or in other words, in folding in upon oneself, bumping into oneself. Coincidence, serendipitous, inside with an S versus inside with a C, in polarity versus in 7, in 7s. In pillars, or the bookends, the pillars at the end, the polarities versus the middle, where they fold in upon each other or on oneself as twins, because you're falling on or collapsing into each other, which is oneself. Then CI, the word, was defined with river and water, poetry, and the mission. CI is to send, hit, split, divide, destroy, and trace, tattoo, explode, burst, line, stroke, to us, who, you, to eat, to stammer, to stutter, to mumble, taste, bite, and elder sister, and each other, ourselves, to us, to there. The Twi language family, or in other words, TWI, which is coming up as a nickname for the twins' language and the family of language of TWI, the mouth opposite and on the contrary, Salt dog to cook, roast, toast, and to glow and shine, as in phased array. The vehicle, the carload, the sewing in sewing machine, to lathe on a machine, to blow, play, or pump instruments, or to urge. So in each other, to glow dental, as in coincidental, where dental means smile. INCI, INCI is pearl, and now, as in the now moment. It also means inch, or the 12th part. And we know the 12th is an ending cycle, and 2.54 centimeters. So incidental is INCI, or the pearl in now, and dental, which is the pearly white, the 12th part of indentation. Where dental is DE, which is of, and NTAL, which means what did I find out? So NTAL with an A on the end means, in Maltese, means to ascend, rise, soar, and climb. So incidental is the the pearl of ascension, the now moment of ascension, the 12th part of ascension. And conjugate is the co-enjugate, and enjugu means ground nut or peanut in Swahili, which references the two peas in a pod. And NTALA is what Natalia kept coming up with that as well. But that's the tala or tela in Maltese, to ascend, rise, soar, and climb. So dental is of ascension or soaring, where dental also means, besides all the tooth and teeth definitions, it means union, rally, and confederation, as in the Confederate ship. Dental is also the den of the Tal, which is the woman, so the woman's den, the lioness's den, the pigeon, like that, anything, whatever, and the valley between the two mountains, yew, willow, the digit or number or figure. Quantity, land, which, remember, land is also earth. To come, number, such, speech, talking, conversation, the sun, as in the sky. Sour, slander, blasphemy, mocking, earth, soil, dirt, and terrain, the field, the region or country. And thallium, which happens to be number 81, which I always tell you in the numerology book comes up as the end of karma around the world, and it's also coded TI, which for me is source. Tal also means one, and thallus, which is the young shoot or twig without vascular tissue like algae. Tal also means tall, end, edge, and the forehead, the brow, and the eyebrow, again referencing the third eye. So coincidental. So coincidental also, remember, incidental means side, so co-sides, which then brings in both sides and makes it whole, coincidental. And the TWI, or the Twi, the nickname for the twins, the Twi language of the mouth, of the salt and the dog and the roast, to drive, sow, play, and use your vehicle, your machine, or your instrument. So partners, pearl, in the now moment, to shine, pearls of each other in mission, of union and the confederation of ascension, to each other to glow, shine, or smile at each other. The 12th part of the lioness's or sunshine's den, the part where you hang out and see new perspectives and be wise. Partners that fall upon each other to ascend and soar. Partners in number 7 to rise and roar. The co-now moment, the den of the woman and the land or Mother Earth. The co-pearly whites or the smiles, the co-sides that are now whole. 2 in Twi, which besides a nickname for twins is the number 2, the O of the human embodiment of source, as well as meaning very small, water, twice, and to say to, in the Twi language. Salty and fresh, the rivers, the salt river and the fresh rivers where Mary Magdalene and JC come together, who use the vehicle to move, sew, or weave, and play. The Twi, TWI, is also the two U's of the W in the middle of the cross, as opposed to the capital T, which is the top dog, with activated chakra system, the lowercase I, and the third eye open, the light body. So the phase is the shiny appearance, and notice the ear in appearance and the app and the ants. Or besides the shiny appearance, phase is also fey, as in the fairy, and see, or that you see suddenly. The conjugate of the co-enjugate of partners who ground nuts or peanuts, two peas in a pod who ground, and in Jew-gate, in the Jew-gate, we juggle and ate. And the Last Supper coming up there. To reflect and propagate and hold the gate wide open with a smiling face, as dissemination outside takes time and space, like sound, as we talked about sound last week or the week before, as in it's much slower than light on the outside, but not from within. So go inside in Fairy Hill, or in incidental, to speak the twee two as one language, that all can conjugate, yoke and join in a juxtaposition side by side, and two can each go inside to connect with the whole. But to coincide with that CIDE is 2 in 7, or the Q and the gamma ray, which the lowercase gamma is also the Y or V with a loop on it, the retrograde, or that reverse motion of conjugation in a loop but with direction. The lowercase qy is the query, and qye is the slanting or being askew, leaning, layer, peak, summit, top, and also the base and the root, or in other words, the mountain side with an S. Q.V means quad v'd, which means which see, I want, and I wish. And the capital Q, capital V is the Valley of the Queens, or the 4-valve cylinder engine. So 2 and 7, as I've brought up many times before, that 2 is like capital Q. When you write it quickly, it becomes like a 2. And the 7 is the key. And the gamma, gamma used to be written as GAMA, like a 7, as opposed to forward, as the gamma with 2 M's. So 2 is the Q and 7 is the gamma ray, but also the boomerang. The partners in boomerang. Conception of gamma ray, the mother's game of the Valley of the Queen, with both the root base and the crown and summit in the slanting layers of the mountain sides around it, around the Valley of the Queen. So 2 and 7 also do that spooning exactly of the reversed phase conjugation, where the 7 is like the masculine spooning the 2 of the queen feminine as she's curled up with her legs, but the masculine wouldn't be able to curl his legs up because he's putting his whole legs around her as they connect in toes and in peak, as in the base and the crown, spooning in June, as June is new and young, connected at the base and the summit. The base and summit camps with space between them in the middle, where space and time to merge the poles, not just juxtaposition side by side, but half merged as that hourglass, as part of the infinity symbol, where the outer parts outside of the hourglass, which are the 2 halves of the moon, are the independent parts of the masculine and feminine, but the hourglass X in the middle is the merged parts of them. So half of them is merged as one, while still maintaining their independence on either side, merging in sameness and complementing differences, as 2 are etheric and 7 seen. The chariot or vehicle is seen, but the 2 higher self is not, as 2 drive the chariot, folded in upon themselves, imploding within to project a powerful stream of longitudinal direction. A powerful force of supernova, or new and young proportion, two stars as one, with super in the middle, their sameness powerfully creates as their differences direct, as the mid-moon is especially potent here. So it's just a phase, because time and space are involved and evolving as a quickening of Highlander, of high vibe Earth Terra Gaia being, a phased conjugation or shiny appearance of the 698 pod, or 2 peas in a pod, grounding the Confederate ship with arcs grounding them, with humans, monk keys in the middle. A temporary swap of DNA, the con of the Jew gate and the pro of the pa, or father's gate, to swap DNA and spread the seed, the Jew that is you, the juice as in au-jus, or juice of the human gate, versus the divine gate of the silver and gold. The con of the experiment and the pro of heaven on earth. As we now reverse the sine wave to the positive polarity, reversing the phased conjugation and headed straight for Father's gate instead, as Mother Nature pushes us out the door, because the twin flames are experiencing reversed phase conjugation themselves with each other. They can lead by example of what we are experiencing outside of ourselves. As opposed to two soulmates reflecting and headed in the same direction, the twins smash as opposed to reflect, and they crash it all to pieces, superstar fashion, and then search the universe to collect all of their pieces, as there was big connection here at 159, the one of the magician and masculine, and the 59 of the 11th hour, and the 5 of swords, war within. Then search the universe to collect all their pieces, merge together as one, and not both 1 and 2, merged and apart, falling in, broken, indented, in surrender, and yet rising, arched, to complement perfectly in the middle, folding in upon themselves, catching and landing each other, flying and grounding, the catcher in the rye, a fated meet and greet, as the field collapses, no time and space, 0 point, boomerang, instantly heard around the world, the sound of silence, as in slow motion or suspended animation, where all faces are in awe and wonder and surprise, as the twins come together, all of a sudden, just in the same space, and time, no time, coinciding in the 12th part of the lioness's den, the queen's valley, who propagate the pearly gates, or the big white smile, perhaps coincidentally, or reversal phase conjugation, or is it just a serendipitous occasion? So the pearl, the now, at 2:14, and of course that's Valentine's Day, the 12th part of Happy Valentine's Day is the Qixi festival, which is in China, August 22nd, 2023, which by the way adds up to 37, which is unconditional love and the 3 keys. But in Japan, it's called something different, and they usually celebrate it now on July 7th every year, 2023, which is 777, which adds up to 21. And when I looked up Qixi festival, it was listing that it was in 80 days, which is my destiny number, but also references around the world in 80 days, where the 80 plus 1, right, plus the other person is 81 of the end of karma around the world. And then at 2:28 to 29, representing the 22 of August 22nd again, from 8 to 9, which actually August 8th into the 9th is my parents' anniversary. And my parents are Geminis, born 7 years and 7 days apart, bringing up the sevens again. Today is my father's birthday. The 7th day of the seventh lunisolar month on the Chinese lunar solar calendar, which is called the Double Seven Festival, and that was coming up from Wikipedia. It's also called Qixi, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, or the 7th Eve. And this was coming up from the spruceeats.com. This is the story. The 7 daughters of the goddess of heaven caught the eye of a cowherd who was visiting the earth. And again, cowherd can represent coward, right? Cowherd, but it's representing one person here. They caught the eye of the cowherd, or coward, visiting the earth. They were bathing in a river, these 7 sisters, and the cowherd, Nu Lang, took off with their clothing, thinking it was funny. So it fell on the prettiest daughter, who happened to be the youngest, who happened, remember happenstance and coincidence, who happened to be the 7th born, to ask to return their clothes. And since Nu Lang had seen Zi Nu naked, they had to be married now, and were happy for several years after. However, the goddess then got fed up with her absence and ordered her to return to heaven, but she also felt bad, so she allowed her to return to see her love once a year. On the 7th night and the 7th moon, the magpies form a bridge with their wings for her to cross and meet her husband. The second story, or version, or perspective, number 2, was that they were fairies living on opposite sides of the Milky Way. So Jade, the emperor of heaven, felt sorry for them and tried to bring them together. But they became so enraptured with each other, they neglected their work. So Jade decreed from that point on they could only meet once a year, the 7th night, or on the 7th moon. So stargazers celebrate by gazing up at Vega, east of the Milky Way, or Zi Nu, and the constellation Aquila, which is the west side of the Milky Way, where Nu Lang waits for his lover to join him. The 7 Sisters Festival, or the Festival of the Double Sevens. Qixi, to rest, to stay, to perch, or inhabit, or in other words, to stay still. To loom, or a type of weaving. And then the word Tana came up because the Japanese festival is Tanabata, means seed or hand, a shelf or board placed lengthwise in a bridge, which we talked about the suspension bridge at the Grand Canyon this past week too, that when the mules cross the bridge and just one board is out of place, they stop and won't move. They won't cross the bridge. And here is a board being misplaced because it's being placed lengthwise, where most of the boards are across. Because there's an ancient ritual here of the maiden to leave a special cloth or something in order to ensure or hatch a bountiful harvest as an offering to God to come across the body of water, which is a very rare visit. The Tanabata is the Japanese star festival. And so they make it a practice now to celebrate on the 7th, but I think the Chinese still celebrate on the actual holiday, which this year is August 22nd. It also means to make a surprise attack. Breath, flavor, style, appeal, spirit, or to take a break. So remember, we come back to the 7th day that God created the world, taking a break. And it's all about the attachment and the resistance, right? Where we resist the runner and chaser, one has to surrender, and the other one to just stop and take a break and just exist. On the 7th day, we rested, as 777 is coming up. So this is a very special lover's full moon, and if you see in my tag, There are many masculine faces in that picture. You have to look. Only the one feminine that the one masculine is looking at, you know, as they both look into each other's eyes. So check out that picture. There's probably 7 masculines in there too. And it's all about the 7-7 and 777 here, and the boomerang energy of the 7th eve and the 7th day where we rest. So when you no longer are in fear, no longer fear of resistance and not wanting something and pushing it away, and we're no longer in fear of attachment, where we're not attached to anything, not just owning things, but doing things. When you are okay to just be with yourself and exist, this is where you create the 0 point field and where everything happens. So on that note, that 7th note, I'm going to let you go. Rise and be love, you guys. And so it is.